Hello, Amanda. Let's get right to your three photos that you sent in. First of all, I absolutely love the shot that you gave me. And it's a fantastic beach scene. I love the reflections. It kind of reminds me of the Baltic Sea. I'm not sure where you took this shot. However, what we'll do just to make sure that it's absolutely perfect, and this is a fine-tuned, sort of nitpicky type situation, and that's good because it already shows you did an excellent job. Do you see how the midpoint where the horizon meets the water, if we this here is represents the middle of your square frame. So if we move the bottom crop up just a little bit, right about to here, then we can see that the water is perfectly intersecting the midpoint. So 50% of the sky is on the top and 50% of the reflected watery surface is on the bottom. Now this is such a small nitpicking amount, but why not make it perfect? The picture is fabulous as it is. So I would say crop up. Let me show you again. I'm just going to crop up a little bit. I'm using this as a reference. Just a touch until the water is at the exact midpoint, cutting the picture in two. So let's accept that by double tapping. And I initially, when I looked at this, I said, well, possibly you need a rotation of about half a degree clockwise. But it's actually not the case. Your levels are really good. The water's perfectly horizontal. And this little beach hut is perfectly vertical. So we're good there. I love the positioning of the people, and I think you have a real winner. The only thing I would suggest is under light. Now, I'm not sure what editing software you use, but this is usually in every editing. Highlights. So if we bring the highlights down just a bit, we don't want it too much. We may be able to rescue a little bit of the blown out highlights here. Now, in all fairness, what you gave me and what I've asked for all of the students who send in portfolio reviews is JPEGs. Now, if this was like a raw picture or something, if you reduced highlights, then you'd have less of the blown out aspects of the sun. However, I'll be honest in saying that it's really of almost no significance. I think it looks fine the way it is. If this, again, if it's a raw picture, you might want to reduce the highlights a little bit here. And also, one thing that you could do is go to brush, make sure your highlights are down, and only adjust the blown out areas. Now, as you can see, because this is a JPEG, it's not doing such a good job. However, you know, if you were using a RAW, then you'd be all set. So I'm just going to get rid of this altogether. And I'd go to this little blue dot and press delete. So I think that as it is, it looks excellent. I'm really pleased with this photo, and great work. Okay, let's get to your next shot. And this is a very nice picture, and it looks like you have a I'm not sure. When I saw this picture, I felt happy. And that's exactly what you're wanting. You're wanting some sort of emotive element to your pictures. One thing that I did feel, though, is that because the man is jovial, he's excited about something, he's got a good face, he's got a good soul, a good spirit. He's looking out of frame, and all I'm asking from this picture is that we have him looking into frame. Now, what that means is that there's more space in front of him where he's looking than behind him. So when I open up my crop tool, I'm going to show you what I would do for this picture just to make it even better. So we're going to go to crop. And I'm going to bring, do you see what happens? Like right now we have, he's sort of not really centered, he's not on the third. So if we bring this crop tool in so that more of his eyes or more of his face is looking out of frame, so we have more space here, let's bring the wall down. Now you may say, well, I like the wall. Well, yes, the wall's good, However, it's going to become too long and thin if we don't bring the wall down. So we need to do this. And I really like his hand. So I don't want to lose the hand here. So let's tap that. And still the picture may be a little bit too vertically, too narrow vertically. But do you see what's happening here? We have less space behind his head and more space in front. And this type of picture, or this type of crop, allows us to metaphorically see him looking into the future. I'm going to go back to the original. And while this picture's really great, especially because we have the full hand, I do feel that because there's so much empty space behind him, it's sort of negating the metaphorical elements of him looking into the future with a sense of hope in his eyes. So that's why I cropped a little bit tighter. Now, of course, this is debatable, and if you feel that my crop is still way, too much eating into the picture, then, well, okay, just back it off a little bit, and at least have it so that his face is in between the two vertical thirds lines. Okay? So this is, I think, acceptable, especially because it shows off his hand. And this would be also acceptable where we have a little bit of a tighter crop and we have him looking into the picture space. I hope that makes sense. Okay, let's get to your next picture. And this is another really interesting, fabulous shot. In this picture, we don't need to have the horizon in the dead center, like I said in the last one. Let's just check for fun. Let's go to your crop tool. And let's see where your lines lie. Now, in traditional composition, this may be a little bit hard for you to see this if you're looking on a small screen, but you see how we have the thirds lines here on this grid? In traditional composition, this is where the crop should be, right here. Because the horizon is going along the line of the, we call it the lower horizontal rule of thirds line. But there's a problem there because we crop off the boy's head, and we don't want that. So what we're going to do is ignore the rule of thirds altogether. And we're not going to crop this picture. In fact, we're going to make sure that we enjoy all of this wonderful golden light that's hitting the sand. Now, what you could do, if you were so inclined, is change this picture so that we do have a dead-centered crop. And we would do that by looking at this midpoint, bringing the sky down until the midpoint of the picture, it goes along the horizon, where the, I guess you could say the ocean is. Now let's take a look at this. Now that's okay. It's a fairly decent shot. Now cropping is sometimes a very objective situation where you can and should follow prescribed guidelines, and other times it's purely subjective. It's whatever you feel looks good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the vertical crop, or the vertical aspects, intact. And I'm just going to see what would happen if I got out of the blown out highlights. Now again, if you were using a raw file, you could probably sort of I don't want to say rescue, because there's nothing wrong with this picture. However, it's a little bit blown out here with the sun peeking through, and that's normal. That's normal for most cameras. If we were so inclined to just crop that out, we at least get this young girl on a third, and it may turn into a vertical picture. Let me take a look here. Now the question is, do you feel that this is a little bit more balanced if we make this a touch of a vertical? Let's go back to the shot where we didn't crop. Okay? Now this is good because the two kids are centered, which is good. Let's bring it in a little bit so we avoid the blown out highlights of the sun. And what do you think about this? Now, the situation is that if you are doing custom framing, you can crop, you keep this picture and just get it framed as you will. However, most crop tools have aspect ratios. And a lot of frames that you would buy at a store are an 8 by 10, or we'd say a 4 by 5 ratio. So let's see what happens if we restrict or constrict the frame for a traditional 8 by 10. Okay, so this is what you'd get with a traditional 8 by 10 frame. Because the picture's great, you might want to frame this. And we have a decent amount of warm yellow, sort of the yellow-orange spectrum, and a really nice splash of blue. Now, blue and yellow are the best combinations to have in a picture. If you have blue and yellow together, then you are all set. So I feel that this is probably my choice. Again, I'm not saying this is the way it has to be, because there's multiple options in this picture. However, I would feel that this is probably going to be the composition I would choose. Mainly because I want to protect the reflection of this boy here. Normally we would probably crop along this line. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Now let's get to your next picture. And I'll go to my... Okay, yes, sorry, you gave me 3 pictures, and that's the sum total of your review. I hope you got a lot out of that. It was really very minimal. You did a great job on these 3 pictures, and I just wanted to say it was a pleasure going through them, and you have a very good eye. Thank you very much, Amanda.